Hi everyone, Merry Christmas! This is Crystal with Emerson Aurora Design, and today I'm going to show you how I made The Grinch Who Stole Christmas light up tumbler. This one's a fun one, and it lights up too. It's going to make a perfect gift to put underneath your Christmas tree this year for that special someone. So I ordered a new type of tumbler for me, 22-ounce Strawbler Tumbler from the Stainless Steel Depot. I've been seeing many people using this tumbler for these light up tumblers. This is my first one I've made with twinkle lights. And I really like the way that the plastic cup fits into the bottom to hold on to that little battery pack for my lights. So I purchased these little battery packs of lights on Amazon in a little 10-pack, I believe. And I'll leave that in the link description box below. And of course, first step is untangling these little stinkers. I went with the white lights because I just think they're more versatile and I use them in all different projects. So untangle very gently your twinkle lights, and I'm going to just make sure that my little battery pack fits in the bottom of this tumbler with some give on the wire. I don't want that wire to be too tight, so I'm going to tape it in place where I think it should be. I'm going to use my UV resin to attach the lights to my tumbler with my UV lamp. So I'm just going to get this down and in place. We'll take care of that here in just a little while. So my idea for this Grinch tumbler is I wanted to show him pulling the Christmas lights off of a Christmas tree after he sneakily snuck into a little Who's house and tried to destroy their Christmas. So I'm going to kind of just place these in the way, kind of imagine how I'm going to place my decals later, and just kind of go back and forth like you would lights on your Christmas tree. These fairy lights are really easy to work with, and I'm just going to tape them in place as I go so that I have a little road map for where my lights will be on the tumbler. I'm doing a Christmas tree shape kind of loosely here with these lights, so wider at the bottom, more narrow at the top. And then I'm just going to kind of swirl them around like they're dangling off of the Christmas tree, and on the opposite side is where the Grinch will be pulling them off. So I'm just kind of loosely swirling them around with the image in my head. I want the tree to be on one side of the tumbler and the Grinch to be on the other so that I can have a pretty even tumbler. So where the Grinch is going to be, which is going to be here, I'm just going to kind of make some loops and twists, almost like the lights are wrapping around him as he's yanking them off the tree. This will all make more sense once you see my decals. With this type of tumbler, it's nice to plan it out to see where exactly you would like your lights, but you can also just wrap it around the tumbler, and that would look cute too. I just wanted to do something different. So I'm going to take my UV resin and just make little dots here and there on the wire to hold my twinkle lights in place, and I'm going to hold that in place while I apply my UV resin. I'm only doing this for about 30 seconds, and it'll continue to cure each time you put the UV light up against the tumbler. So as long as it's just enough to hold that, tack it, and kind of tack those little wires in place, that's perfectly fine. Try not to get your fingers in the UV resin, because when you put your UV lamp on there, it will burn. So be really careful. Don't get that UV resin on your finger. If you need to hold the wire down or move the UV resin around, you can use a little silicone tool like I am here. It's very important. Yes, it does hurt when the UV resin cures on your finger. I know that from experience. I do not want to do my UV resin directly on the little twinkle light bulbs. I wasn't sure if it would hurt them or not, but I didn't want to take that chance. So basically I'm just tacking down that wire that's around the bulbs. This is sped up. This took me probably, I'd say about 30 minutes in all to tack this completely down to my tumbler. It's kind of a satisfying process. This is the first time I've done one of these tumblers. I'm not one for doing tumblers that are kind of gimmicky, but this one looked like fun and I really wanted to give it a try. And I really love the Jim Carrey version of the Grinch Who Stole Christmas. It's one of my favorite Christmas movies that I love to watch every year, and I just wanted a fun tumbler to make. So now I'm going to pull off my tape and just put more little tacks there just to make sure I get this down nicely. I am going to epoxy over this tumbler, so that will hold this completely in place. But I didn't want the wires to move around at all as I was rubbing the epoxy onto the tumbler. This tumbler has only been sanded, washed, and spray painted a white matte. I didn't want to apply any glitter yet because I want to apply my epoxy and glitter directly over these little twinkle lights to kind of hide the wire as much as possible. That's the one thing that I didn't really care for with these light up tumblers, is that you could see the wires. So I'm doing my best to kind of conceal as much as I can with these wires. You'll see later what I mean. I'm trying to spread the UV resin around a little bit so that it'll be flat. You don't want the UV resin to be a big bubble of resin, because that'll just make it harder to cover later also. So do your best to kind of spread it around. Use your little silicone tool. Here I'm using a weeding tool to hold that wire down so that it adheres really nicely. I was just making sure my lights still work. That's one of my fears, that I get this completely finished and then my lights don't work. So I'm continually kind of turning them on, making sure they work. I have the lights all tacked on there nicely. And the next step will be to put it on my turner. Well, actually that'll come next. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to fix this bottom. This is a little screw-on plastic bottom that goes on these Strawblers, And I don't want it to screw, because every time you screw the bottom on, it is going to possibly tear your twinkle lights and break them. So they have ridges. I'm going to take my little Dremel tool and I'm going to just kind of gently and evenly wear those ridges down with my grinding bit here. This, it takes some patience. It is messy and it will fling shards of plastic at you. So please, please, please wear eye protection if you're going to do this. I pulled the battery pack and the wire out of the bottom so that I'm not continually pushing that bottom in and out and to break those wires, if that makes any sense. I pulled it out and I taped it to the side of the tumbler for right now. You can kind of see it there, taped to the side. Like I said, this takes some patience. At first I was going real lightly with the drill bit, and then I started getting a little more aggressive with it. I want to get the happy medium of grinding down those ridges so that I can just snap it on and pop it off without it being too loose. I don't want it to not have any grip, because I do want it to hold in place when you're using the tumbler. It's still pretty tight, but I was able to kind of pop it off. So I'm going to keep working on it until I perfect it. This did take me a while. Once I get it to the place that I want, I am going to put my little battery pack in there and apply a couple pieces of Velcro to the battery pack to hold it in place. You don't want your battery pack flopping around in there. It's nice that you can change out these batteries on these tumblers so that this tumbler can be used for the years and years to come, and hopefully just be a fun little conversation starter at your holiday party. So I'm just using stick-on Velcro here, and I'm going to stick it down in there. You want it to be in the center because that cap, the base, I should say, is going to snap down, and you don't want it to hit the battery pack. Now we're going to take care of where that wire goes into the bottom. I do not want that cap to come all the way down, if that makes any sense. I'm going to cut a little ridge, little nub, I don't know how to explain it. I'm going to cut a little section out of this rim here, and hopefully it will make it so that wire is continually not getting bumped. I'm going to do everything I can, because I'm putting so much work into this tumbler, to try not to let that wire break. So here's where you're going to use your muscles. I'm using my extra strength, I guess these are wire cutters, with my little pink handle. Aren't I fancy? And I'm using my amazing grip strength here to cut that little edge off. If you don't want to cut it out like this, you can cut it with a little saw bit, I guess, on your Dremel. This is the way I do it, though. I'm going to kind of push that plastic back and forth until I get an opening there, so that it's a little bit more flush with the bottom of that lid, bottom of the lid that's on the bottom of the tumbler. You can take some sandpaper or your little Dremel tool and grind that plastic down so you don't have any sharp bits here. And now we're going to put it all back together and line that opening up where the wire is. Snap it down. Perfect. So I'm going to tape my wire in place from the inside of the rim there, and we're going to go ahead and put this on the turner. I don't want my battery pack flopping around while it's turning on my turner, and even though I did Velcro it down, I am still taping it in place just in case. Now we're going to head over to my turner. I'm just going to use a couple different whites. I have this Diamond Series Dove. It's a really pretty white sparkle. It doesn't have any holographic or anything. It's simply a white sparkle. I'm going to add that directly to my epoxy. This is a 22-ounce tumbler, but it's pretty chunky. So I'm using probably about 30 mLs of epoxy, I believe. I really want to have it be a good thick coat. So the Diamond Series Dove I add directly to my epoxy, and then I'm going to go through with like a chunky mix white. It's kind of like a frosty white chunky mix, and sprinkle it on top. I'll show you that here in just a few minutes. Be real gentle when you're putting your epoxy on here. You don't want to dislodge any of your wires. This tumbler is going to be pretty heavy. It's going to have several layers of epoxy to cover up those wires. I wanted it to be fairly smooth in the end, which it is, but it still does have a little bit of the light. I can still feel where the lights are. So I lightly torched the tumbler to pop any bubbles. Just be careful. I was worried about the heat on the wire. So here's that kind of a snowy, chunky mix. It has several different cuts, and it's a very frosty white. It doesn't have a name. I ordered it on AliExpress. But it is the perfect snow glitter. When I'm doing snow, I don't like the glitters that have holographic notes to it. I just like the silvery and sparkly and white. So I'm just liberally sprinkling that around to get good coverage, to try to cover up the wire. Or at least try to camouflage the wire, I should say. It isn't going to completely cover, but that's okay. We'll address that all later. So I'm going to let this turn on my turner. I just showed a little bit more of the white, Diamond Series white. I'm just adding a little bit more fine glitter to it. But I'm going to let this turn on my turner. I believe that I did use my regular artist resin, so I'm going to let this turn overnight. I'm going to go in with probably 3 layers of epoxy to get a kind of a nice smooth coat over these wires, and letting them cure completely each time. It is a long process with the epoxy, but it is worth it in the end. And there's a close-up of those pretty glitters. Very snowy and Christmassy. So this is a few days later, and I guess I didn't record. You'll see when I turn the tumbler that I already have my Christmas tree image, my water slide on there, right there. I think I lost that footage, or it stopped recording something. But I'm going to show you how I apply my Grinch image that I found on Google. I am using Hiipoo waterslide paper. It's kind of my go-to right now. I'll leave a link in the description box below. The colors are very vibrant, and I'm really happy with how this waterslide paper works. Plus, it's kind of on the thicker side, so it's more forgiving. So I'm going to go ahead and put my base on there just to protect my battery, and I'm going to start my water slide. So I'm just adding a little bit of water on the tumbler for that water slide application. Since these lights are LED lights, they do have a little bit of a hint of a blue tint to them, which is fine. You could probably choose different shades of these lights, I would guess. I kind of just chose the first set I came to when I was searching for them on Amazon. I'll leave the ones that I purchased in the description box below. So here's my little Grinch. You're a mean one, little guy. It's hard to tell, but I put him right in the center of where those wires are kind of swirling around because I want it to look like he's wrapped up in the lights. So I'll let that completely dry. I'm going to put a layer of epoxy over these water slides once they're completely dry, and then we'll be on for the next step. And there's the Christmas tree part, since I totally forgot to record it. I'm using my X-Acto knife just to get, because my fat little finger couldn't get in there to turn the light on. So that's how the lights look with the Christmas tree. Looking pretty good. So now we have our layer of epoxy over our water slides. And I found these little Christmas bulbs. They're translucent looking. I just looked on Google for Christmas lights. And I actually printed them on translucent clear printable vinyl. I can leave that in the description box below, the one that I like to use. I didn't want to do water slides. I just thought that that would be too much of a pain because these are so tiny. I just cut out each one and I'm going to apply them over each bulb to give it a colored look. It's kind of a tedious job here. I'm using my little pen weeding tool that I like, and peeling the backs off and just sticking them in different little areas so that the lights look like they're colored. I like intricate details like this, so it wasn't too tedious to me. I just turn my jams on or a movie that I want to watch or show I want to watch and just start working at it. Hopefully you guys like that kind of work too. But this really does make a difference, I believe. I wanted the bulbs to be a little more to scale with the tree, so I didn't go with oversized cartoonish bulbs, although I could have because, you know, it's Whoville and everything's huge and cartoonish, but I was able to get more on my light strip with these littler ones, so I was happy with how it turned out. I'm going to place them on where the lights are, plus I'm going to place them in between. As you can see the wire kind of looping around, I'm just going to add them also because I want it to look like a strand of lights. So I'm going to do that also. And we'll go in here in just a few minutes and draw in the wire. I'm not going to add these bulbs directly on the Christmas tree because the Christmas tree, you know, basically has Christmas lights on there. So I just left it as is. I didn't want to add that on top. But you can if you want. That's how they look. They're pretty cute, if I do say so myself. So my favorite paint marker, I'm not sure the brand, it came in a pack of black, silver, and gold and white on Amazon. That's really fine tipped acrylic paint marker that I have found works great. I'll leave that in the description box below if you are interested in purchasing these. So I started off just going directly over those wires and following them around to where they connect with the bulbs. You'll have to take a look at your image and see which lines you want to have behind the Grinch and which lines you want to have in front of the Grinch. I didn't want a ton of lights going in front of him, so quite a few of them look like they're going behind him. I didn't want to take away from the image, but I did still want to make it look like he's wrapped up in those. He got all tangled up in those. I'm sorry this isn't the greatest angle. It's hard to draw, see what you're doing, and film at the same time. Now it's kind of coming together. This definitely is one of those tumblers that you have to have an idea in your head, and it's nice to see when it finally comes together. So I'm not going to draw directly over the Christmas tree. Um, I didn't want those lines drawn over the Christmas tree. I just thought it would look funny. And you can't really tell that it's not wrapping around the Christmas tree, essentially. Um, and then I went all the way down to the bottom. I'm just making sure I didn't miss any areas. If you make a mistake with this acrylic paint marker, you can just go in and wipe it off and start over again. It's the beauty of using these over a fully epoxy tumbler. So now I'm going to dress the lid. These Strawblers come with this kind of icy style bubble lid. I'm going to spray paint this pretty red. And I'm going to use these two different fine red glitters. One is more of a deep red holographic and one is more of a bright red metallic. And I'm going to do the tack it method on this lid. Essentially, I want the lid, my idea was to have the lid look like an ornament. My tack it was a little bit thick here and I added a little bit too much, so I had to keep wiping it on there, but essentially you want your tack to be a smooth, even layer, and you want it to dry completely so that it is tacky to the touch. If you've never done the tack it method, it is one of the most satisfying methods to use when applying glitter. I'm going to let this dry, and then once it's dry, I'm going to use my little tea strainer. It's a little tea strainer purchased at Walmart, and I'm going to just tap it around until I get those two glitters nicely even on this tumbler top. The tea strainer really helped in allowing that fine glitter to be evenly dispersed on that tacket. So use my finger and rub around everywhere on the tumbler, and it'll allow that glitter to lay flat and smooth against the tumbler lid, and it will really make a stunning metallic, shiny, like ornament type texture. I was really happy with how this turned out. I'm going to do 2 layers. Once I have this completely, the glitter completely flat, I'm going to go in directly to another layer of Tack It and repeat my steps with the glitter and then burnishing. I popped my tumbler lid on the turner 2 times for 2 different layers of epoxy, and here's my mean one, Mr. Grinch tumbler. I really love the way he turned out. I've been getting so many compliments on my little guy here. It ended up being a really fun tumbler to make, and I'm so glad that I decided to try this method. If you guys are new to my channel, thank you so much and welcome. If you like my videos, you can hit that subscribe button. Drop me a question if you have one. I hope you guys have a wonderful and blessed Christmas, and I hope you're having so much fun making all of your Christmas dreams come true and your lovely Christmas art gifts come true. Happy crafting, everyone, and Merry Christmas.